Hi everyone. Just do a quick check-in to where we're at. I've made out of polymer. I've made some eyeballs, and I've intentionally made them oversized. If we hold up our anatomical skull, you can see that the eyeballs are intentionally a little bit larger. Just thought I would, because the bonehead armature itself is a little bit large. I thought I would just exaggerate those, the size of those eyeballs. Just quickly laid on some temporary lids just to get a sense of the basic structure. I hacked together a quick nose and I tilted it off to the side. We talked about that tilt to the nose. Just checking what it would look like with, this fairly smooth and these wrinkles here. But again, those are all temporary, and so one of the first things I'll do as I carry on is really get rid of those, because I haven't really set the eyeballs in place. I need to fill in some of that material around them. So where I'll go next with the eyes is to fill in some of this material in here, and then sculpt the brows and the eyelids a little more accurately. But sometimes it's okay to just quickly slap up something temporary just to have a look at where you're going, and just to see if you need to make any major adjustments. Obviously, the other aspect that I've overbuilt. There's no board like overboard. I did make a full set of teeth in polymer. Obviously, I need to set those into place soon. And again, the teeth are a little bit oversized, and I intentionally made them more blocky and a little more rectangular. They're less tapered than the teeth you see here. Remember that there's no gums showing here, so we are just seeing the exposed part of the teeth. Here we're seeing it in the absence of gums, but I think those will work. Again, they're a little bit exaggerated, but they've got some personality to them. And I've got my reference here and my reference photos. I'm not trying to make a likeness, and so that's important to clarify. I want to use this as the size reference, and I want to use the photographs as to guide the expression and the pose, but I'm not terribly interested in a likeness. So we've got the exaggerated teeth, we've got the oversized eyeballs, probably make the nose a little bit oversized. The neck on this armature is also a little bit long, so it'll be less beefy in here, maybe not quite as large of a gravy pouch or whatever that is. On the teeth, once I set them in place, and I'll fill in all this gap with just some tin foil and paper to take up some of the bulk. But then our lip, our mouth will kind of be like that, sort of. Right, that'll give us our kind of our basic expression. So just pause for a second. I'll throw in a couple stills of the building process on those teeth. If you didn't look at some of the polymer videos, I did do a segment on teeth, and so what I did do is I made the individual teeth first, cured them quickly in the oven, and then when those teeth were firm and they had sharp points on them, and then I built some gums and was able to just insert all of those teeth into those gums, and then bake the whole thing again, then shaved it down. I've got a little bit of adjustment to do still, but I'll get that locked into place soon. So I'll just pause for a moment and throw in a couple stills of that, of making of those teeth. So that's how we ended up with these teeth, and you'll remember that in the original armature it has that set, and they were a little bit crushed to start, which started me off thinking that we could do something different with the teeth. Let me just quickly talk about tools and the setup. So I've got my reference. I've got my reference size. So something I'm using here that's important is these calipers. And what that does is it just allows me to just make sure I'm in the ballpark for proportions. So outside, where the measurements outside of the eyes. And when you see the sculpture at this point, it looks really creature-like. It looks very monster, kind of zombie-like. That is mostly from not having really any sort of fat in the cheeks. So if we were to kind of go mid-cheek, about the line of the mouth, you can see there's a lot of material that needs to be built up here. The cheeks up here, around that, the zygomatic arch. We're actually pretty close here, so probably not going to build up any more in there, but really need to build out this mass in here. Okay, so as this gets filled in with a little bit of mass, it'll seem less creature-like and a little more human. So calipers are really important. Really the only other thing I'm using at this point, using my hands to apply the clay in chunks, and then using some large rake tools. And so these are just built out of bandsaw blades. And again, what that does is it just quickly allows you to even out the surface a little bit, so you can see, have a little better idea of where you're at in terms of the overall form. Only looking at the primary forms, right? The major masses. What are the primary points of geometry? Referencing this for scale, referencing the photos for the expression, but allowing this to have a life of its own as well, which again is another reason for exaggerating the teeth and the eyeballs. Another tool that I find quite useful to have when working with monster clay is a hair dryer. An actual heat gun can work, but you have to be pretty careful because they get so hot so quickly. So good old Philips 1400. I think this hair dryer is about 35 years old, and it just keeps plugging along. But let's just give it about 10 seconds on high heat. And see how soft that clay has got. So if you've got some really firm areas and you're trying to attach something, or you're wanting to smooth things out more, hair dryer can come in quite handy for that. The last part of the workspace setup I want to show you is the clay prep. If you've used monster clay before, monster clay medium in particular, it's very, very hard when you first take it out of the package. Really tough to work with. However, it softens up quickly with just a little bit of heat, and particularly living in a relatively northern climate, and temperature in the studio gets cold overnight. So I use crock pot, and depending on the scale that you're working at, this little mini one is more than sufficient for me. At school we use a large, like 20 quart like turkey cooker, and I let that get pretty soft in my studio. I keep it up fairly high so it's quite liquidy, so I can pull out pretty gooey clay. And then I built this warming box, and full disclaimer, this does not meet any sort of building code or electrical code or regulations. As careful as I can, as could be, and used proper connections and insulated and grounded wire. But this is a HelloFresh box, so HelloFresh, it's like a meal delivery, and so it comes in this insulated box. And so what I've done is just built a little bit of a door on it and wired in a 60-watt bulb, and it gets warm enough to make the clay soft without turning it completely liquid. So I found that by making 2 layers, so this down here is still relatively firm, but this stuff up here is really soft, really quite gooey. If you decide to build one of these, be careful. Make sure you know what you're doing. Never leave it unattended.